What was I thinking? Choosing this assignment for myself? A group would have been so much better. People to discuss and share ideas with, others to collaborate with. Okay, enough whining. Time to get started on this assignment. So, the question is, does learning take place differently in online and blended learning environments? I want to say yes off the top of my head, but isn't learning learning, be it online or face-to-face? Maybe the best way to do this is to interview an expert.
Siri, does learning take place differently in online and blended learning environments?
That is a great question, Brad. Do you want the simple or the in-depth answer?
Let's go with simple, Siri.
All right, Brad. Here is the simple answer. Yes, no, depends.
I think a little more explanation is needed than that. Could you please explain?
Before I give you this answer, I need you to give me your definition of learning.
Well, Siri, I would define learning as the gaining of knowledge or skills not previously known.
Okay, Brad. With this definition, we need to break our original question up a bit. How do you know if learning has taken place?
Well, Siri, I would measure the student's learning based on a set of criteria that has been put into place. Something like the prescribed learning outcomes set out by the Ministry of Education.
So, Brad, will these be measured as able to or not able to, in the same way both online or not online?
It looks like they would be measured in the same way. Either the student has learned the material or not. Does that mean that there's no difference in learning between online or face-to-face learning?
Don't jump to conclusions quite yet, Brad. Do you really believe learning is just gaining knowledge or skills?
Well, I guess there's a process involved as well.
What do we call these processes of learning? Or we could ask, what do we call how students learn?
You're talking about learning theories, aren't you, Siri?
You are right, Brad. Do you remember the different learning theories? I think we should look at those. Maybe the key to your question lies in the learning theories?
I guess you're right, Siri. For the sake of time, however, do you think we could just look at a couple?
I think by looking at a couple different learning theories, it will give us a good idea if your question will be answered. Which would you like to start with, Brad?
I've always liked behaviorism.
Searching behaviorism. You know, Brad, I would search faster if you upgraded your internet package.
Thanks for the tip, Siri.
Okay, behaviorism. Behaviorism is best known because of the work of B.F. Skinner. In very simplified terms, certain behaviors are immediately rewarded and all other behaviors are ignored. This is called operant conditioning.
If I remember correctly, Siri, there are 4 conditions that need to be met in order for effective learning to take place in an online environment.
That is correct, Brad. Do you remember what they are?
Yes. First, students should know the outcomes for the learning. Second, assessment should be integrated into the learning. Third, materials must be sequenced properly. And lastly, the student must get feedback.
That is correct, Brad.
It appears from that list, Siri, that those conditions need to be met not only for an effective online environment, but also a face-to-face environment if you're using behaviorism.
It would appear that way, Brad. It is looking like there is not much difference between learning in an online environment versus a face-to-face environment. I think before we make any conclusions, however, we should look at another learning theory. Which one would you like to look at next?
I think we should look at constructivism.
Searching constructivism. Here we go. Constructivism. Dr. Tony Bates describes constructivism as knowledge being subjective and being constructed from perceptions and conventions. Knowledge is achieved by digesting information relating to our existing knowledge, and then processing that information through reflection.
Reflection is an emphasis with teachers who use this approach. Often we will see a lot of group projects as well. Siri, can't this approach be done online and in traditional classrooms as well?
It would appear it can.
So looking at these 2 learning theories, learning is the same both online and face-to-face.
Now that you have this information, Brad, are you ready to answer the question you posed to me earlier? Does learning take place differently in online and blended learning environments?
Well, looking at what we have so far, we could say, no, it doesn't take place differently. But there's something in that just feels wrong.
So, Brad, What are the differences then?
Well, online I can be anywhere. Everything happens virtually. The personal connections to those in your class can be more difficult. You may never actually meet your professor. The places you meet in classes are not physical locations. The times are also different. I can be working away at 2 p.m. or 2 a.m. So in those ways, learning is different.
I would agree, Brad. Maybe the true answer to your question can only be answered depending on your definition of learning.
You're right, Siri. If your definition is only about the end product, learning isn't different. If your definition is about the process, it too likely isn't that different. But if your definition includes the journey to reach the end destination, the tools, places, people, and the end results, then there is a difference.
So, Brad, are you ready to answer the question yet? Does learning take place differently in online and blended learning environments?
My answer, Siri, is yes, no, and depends. It's all a matter of how you define learning.